Good evening, everybody. I'm going to start this meeting by calling our Monday, September 19th meeting to order officially. If everyone could, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we get this meeting kicked off, I just want to make one quick comment. In general, there are 2 times during a regular meeting when public comments are made. That is citizen participation and during public hearings. So if you haven't yet and you are interested in making a comment, please sign up with the clerk, Awilda, who's over there, and prior to the start of every meeting. So with that being said, Madam City Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, we do have a quorum this evening. In council chambers, we have Councilmember Esteve, Councilmember Wolfley, Councilmember Harrison, Councilmember Ndebumadu, and Mayor Pro Tem Boafo. Mayor Adams is excused this evening. He's not feeling well. And I believe Councilmember Gardner should be joining us shortly via virtual.
All right, great. I'll move on to agenda additions, deletions, or amendments. Do any members have any?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to postpone the final item on our new business agenda tonight with Mr. Lee Cornwell. If we can push him back to our first meeting in October, I appreciate that.
All right. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the vote has passed. Lee, you are off the hook tonight.
He's gone.
Yeah, he already left the building. Jeez, that was quick. Moving on to citizen participation, Madam City Clerk, do we have anybody? All right. Is Mabel Stewart in the audience?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay. My name is Mabel McIntyre Stewart, and I'm here. I live in District 4 of Bowie, and I actually had copies for you all. But I'm asking for consideration for a traffic speed bump. In my neighborhood, I'm on Anthony Way, and also at the corner of Mount Oak and Ann Arbor. We've had quite a few incidents over there. We've had when the wipers, not the wipers, let me read this. This will do better. Okay. Most recently, my 2 young great-granddaughters were being placed in their car seats on the street side, and a car came barreling around the corner so fast that if I had not hollered for my daughter-in-law to shut the door, and I laid myself up against the door, someone would have certainly been hit. Speeding is a real problem, especially at Mount Oak and Ann Arbor. Now, I've lived in Bowie for over 35 years, and when I first moved to Bowie in the 80s, much of the now developed areas, it was woods, trees, and just forests, okay? So with so much new development and also increased traffic in Bowie, the speedsters, they basically treat those residential streets just like it's a major highway. We can be standing there waiting to go out, especially at Mount Oak and Ann Arbor, and a car will go flying through there. We have learned to wait, okay? Even if it looks like it's gonna stop. So I think it's real important. We have quite a few kids on my block, okay? Now I know my block may not be as important as maybe Ann Arbor and Mount Oak, okay? But my thing is, the kids go out there for the bus stops. We know of the accident that happened over there off of, I think, what was it, Enterprise, somewhere over there. Nothing have happened, but I've seen an accident right up in that area as they were coming out. The cops are pretty good about sitting out there sometimes, but just as soon as they leave, they speed through there again. It's really a problem. So I think something as simple as a speed bump would help a lot. And I have looked online, even though I'm not with the city and the city's budget, they're relatively cheap, okay? So, I mean, even a flashing stop sign would help because of the fact that it is a bus stop, okay? And in the area where I live, it's probably about 5 or 6 kids there that go to school around that corner. We've had the cars to come flying around that corner so fast that literally, like I said, that time I had to stop and just holler and jump up against the car to keep some crazy person, excuse my expression, but if they drive like they don't have sense, I'm gonna call them crazy, okay? Coming around the corner, like they just don't care about that area. We're in a very short cul-de-sac, only 12 houses there. So I'm asking you all to please, I called the city, I called them twice, and they told me I had to talk to my council person. So that's why I'm bringing it to your attention. Okay?
All right, citizen participation is officially closed. Moving on to presentations, it looks like we have one tonight, the Hispanic-Latino Heritage Month presentation by our Diversity Committee.
Good evening, and good evening, everyone. Good evening. So, my name is Tisha Hillman. I'm actually presenting for our Vice Chair, Jessica Fuchile, who cannot be here this evening. So, these are her words, so I want to make sure to give her credit for these words. And so, yes, I am from the Diversity Committee. And on behalf of the city's Diversity Committee, I have the opportunity to present Hispanic Heritage Month. On September 1968, President Lyndon B. Johnson proclaimed National Historic Heritage Month to be celebrated from September 15th through October 15th. In President Johnson's proclamation, it was known that September 15th marked the independence from Spain for 5 countries that are Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and on September 16th, Mexico celebrates its independence from Spain, and on September 18th marks Chile's independence. Now, what is Hispanic Heritage Month? It's a celebration of history, of culture, and contributions of American citizens with roots from Spain, Mexico, and the Caribbean, Central and South America. Now, I may mispronounce this, so Awilda may help me with this. La Herencia Hispana, okay, which translates to Hispanic heritage, is celebrated across the United States with festivals, music, and food. In preparing this presentation, I, being Jessica, found a couple of interesting facts related to Hispanic heritage. Did you know that some English words derive from indigenous languages, such as dialects spoken in Central and South America? For examples, chocolate is a word originated from the Nahuatl language spoken by the Aztecs and still spoken in parts of Mexico. And the word puma is actually originated from Hucheca language, which is primarily spoken in Peru, but also in Bolivia and Ecuador. Spanish has been used in political campaign ads. Specifically in 1960, Jackie Kennedy, the wife of John F. Kennedy, made a broadcast in Spanish to encourage Spanish-speaking voters in the presidential race. On April 30th, 2019, Representative Jose E. Serrano introduced H.R. 2420, the National Museum of the American Latino Act, that was passed by Congress. In this bill, it states the purposes of the museums are to illuminate Latino contributions to the story of the United States, to promote the study and appreciation of Latino life, art, history, culture, and their impact on society in the United States. According to the April 2020 population census, Hispanics/Latino make up 20.4% of the population in Prince George's County, Maryland. Here at home, the Bowie Diversity Committee is also celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. It is not yet a face-to-face celebration, but a virtual one. You can find biographies of famous Hispanic people in the U.S., books to read during the celebration for adults, teens, and children, and a list of events happening in the DMV area to join and learn more about Hispanic Heritage Month. It has been an honor to have presented this month's celebration. In conclusion, I would like to share a quote by Cesar Chavez that I feel gives encouragement to continue to embrace our city's diversity. And that is, preservation of one's own culture does not require contempt or disrespect for other cultures. And I thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll now move on to city boards and committees. The chair will now entertain a motion. Does anyone want the paper?
Oh, thank you very much. We help you out. All right, since there's no mayor pro tem around. All righty. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to appoint to the Diversity Committee for a 2-year term Tiffany Scales.
I'd like to second that motion.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any objection? Hearing none. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Ms. Tiffany Scales, are you here?
Do we want to do them all at once?
We're going to break them into two.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
Tiffany Scales.
Do swear or affirm
Do swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland
to the state of Maryland
and support the Constitution and laws therefor,
and support the Constitution and laws therefor,
and that I will, to the best of my judgment and skill,
and I will, to the best of my judgment and skill,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of regular member
execute the office of regular member
of, and state your committee,
of the Diversity Committee
according to the Constitution and laws of this state.
according to the Constitution and laws of the state.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Good job. There you go.
thank you.
Congratulations.
Oh, there's the mayor, he's back on. Oh, poor guy. All right.
All right, the chair will entertain another motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to move the appointment to the Bowie Community Engagement Subcommittee, Rhonda Billingsley, Robert W. Day Sr., and Clint Truesdale, and Abigail Snyder to replace the previously appointed Elmer Dengler.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
All right.
The following folks who are named can come up to guys, please. Who wants to dole these out when we're done? Sure. What's the name of this committee?
Mr. Judo. George
You guys did we do that?
Yeah, because he already got appointed last week. He
Yeah.
just needs to get sworn in, so if you want to just bring
Okay,
him
fair
up.
enough.
bring him
Is Mr. Uday here as well?
up. Okay.
Come on up.
Bring him up.
Thank you. All right, everybody. If you could raise your right hand, please. I, and state your name. Do swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States. And that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland and support the Constitution and laws thereof. and that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment, diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice, execute the office of regular member of the Racetrack Property Task Force according to the Constitution and laws of this state. All right, congratulations, you guys.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, everyone. Congratulations. Welcome aboard.
We'll move on to council announcements now. Do any members have any announcements? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to say thank you to the young lady who presented on behalf of the Diversity Committee. She did a fantastic job highlighting Hispanic-Latino Heritage Month. So thank you very much.
Any other members? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the city manager's report. Al?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have no report, but we're working really hard here in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you.
We'll keep it up. Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda now. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? The vote has passed. Moving to old business, the adoption of Ordinance 0422. I will turn it over to city staff.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. I'm Joe Minert, the City of Bowie Planning Director. This item is an ordinance. It concerns two small pieces of property in the Highbridge Park subdivision adjacent to the city's Popes Creek Park, which is an active recreation ball field facility. This property is owned currently by the state of Maryland, and they've declared the property surplus. The city has expressed an interest in acquiring this open space land to add it to the park property. There is program open space funds available for the city to purchase that land. Two appraisals were done, and the values have been established, and the state is actually offering the property to the city at a discounted price of $346.91. So it's a real good deal for the city. It will allow the city to provide additional ball field space and additional parking space for the users of the park. So this acquisition is consistent with the city's acquisition policy, as we pointed out in the staff memo. You introduced this ordinance at your previous meeting earlier this month, and so tonight it's up for public hearing and eligible for action. And if approved, you will authorize the city manager to follow through and execute the agreement of sale. And that concludes the staff presentation. If there are any questions, I could answer them.
Thank you. Before members ask any questions, I will open the public hearing.
Mayor Pro Tem, we don't have anyone signed up, and we did not receive any comments this evening.
Good. The public hearing has closed. Any members have any questions? Councilmember Estef.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Minert, can you repeat the price tag for us?
The state is offering it at the cost, their cost of acquisition plus interest, which the amount is $18,346.91.
All right, $18,000. And for the sake of the folks at home, can you remind us how our open space budget is funded?
The program Open Space is an allocation of funding from the state of Maryland Department of Natural Resources.
Great. Just want to make sure I clarify that tonight, in case anyone asks us to go on a land buying spree this evening.
Councilmember Wolfley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. First of all, thanks to staff for moving forward with this. I think this will be a great addition to the facilities there, provide opportunity for additional usage, recreational usage, and importantly, to get people off the streets up there. It's been a real detriment to the neighborhood there, and I greatly appreciate being able to move forward, and it's at a bargain basement price as well. So thank you very much for your good efforts and bringing this to fruition.
Any other questions by members? If not, it is eligible for action.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to approve Ordinance 0422.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye.
For the record, Councilmember Gardner, that was an aye in the affirmative? Yes. I'm gonna go with that.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, the ordinance has passed. Moving on to new business, starting with the sectional map amendment for Bowie, Mitchellville, and the vicinity. I will pass it along to city staff.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Buoy, and again, good evening, council members. I'm Joe Meinert, Planning Director, and this item tonight is a public hearing item concerning the Bowie and Mitchellville and vicinity sectional map amendment. A sectional map amendment is the last step in the master planning process for a community, and as the council is aware, the county produced the master plan for Bowie, and it was approved in April of 2022 by the Prince George's County Council. So this is the last step in that process to actually create the zoning that would conform to the policies of the master plan. What you have before you is a memo that we've prepared. We have identified that the County Council and County Planning Board will have a public hearing on this sectional map amendment next Tuesday, September 27th at 5 p.m., and that's a virtual hearing. We also had a hearing last week before the Bowie Advisory Planning Board, and with us this evening is the chairman of the advisory board, Mr. Michael Bird, and I'll allow him to present, but I wanted to just summarize the staff recommendation before he does that. This staff memo consists of basically two tables of information that summarizes the sectional map amendment changes. Table 1 is the comprehensive zoning recommendations, which are in the proposed document proposed by Park and Planning staff. In many instances, a lot of the 150 changes that are proposed are down zonings to open space of park properties and that type of rezoning. We recommended specific comments on 10 of the 150 changes. And I bring to your attention on page 2 of the staff report, one of the changes was zoning change number 30 concerning the Jesuit property on the north side of Maryland Route 450, and the request was to downzone it from the RE zone to the AR zone. So that's going from 1 unit per acre to 1 unit per 2 acres. What the sectional map amendment did not do, however, was rezone the property on the south side of Route 450. So our recommendation is that we send a letter to the county asking them to include the property south of Maryland 450 so that all the Jesuit property would be zoned the same way. And furthermore, we're recommending even going to the next lower zone. The AG zone is 1 unit for 5 acres. And so that's change number 30. We had a number of other changes that we've commented on, basically keeping the development patterns within existing subdivisions and not creating spot zones. For example, in the Forest Drive area and the Longleaf area, there's some of those situations, and we just felt that the zoning should not be changed. It should be kept the same as it is in the rest of the subdivision. Table 2 of the staff report covers the individual property owner requests, which were submitted separately from the sectional map amendment proposal, and there were 18 of those property owner requests, and they're shown on the attached maps. We concurred with most of the requested changes. About half of those 18 were actually overlapping with the Sectional Map Amendment Table 1 changes, so they're actually appearing in both. But staff recommended 5 exceptions to those 18 requests, and basically we are pointing out that the requests do not conform to the master plan, and so therefore they should not be approved. They were individual requests by individual property owners to be considered, and those did not meet the criteria for changes with consistency to the master plan. And so, in summary, staff is recommending approval of the changes that I've identified in the staff report, and that we would want to send a letter for the joint public hearing, which is next week, with these recommendations in it. And at this point, Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Mr. Michael Byrd, who's the chairman of the advisory board, and he can summarize the hearing from last week.
All right, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem. For the record, again, I'm Michael Byrd. I'm the chairman of the Bowie Advisory Planning Board. We held a public hearing last Tuesday, September 13th. Unfortunately, there was only 3 of us from the planning board that were there, so we didn't have quorum. There were a number of citizens, a lot of them are here this evening, that were there last week, and I offered them the opportunity to go ahead and to speak unencumbered by time limitations. So from the speakers, we had 10 speakers. 9 of those were actual citizens from the community, and the 10th speaker was counsel for the Freeway Airport Realty Company. In sum, really, this was about a sectional map amendment, which consists of 150 parcels of land, but we only concentrated on one, really kind of 2. So that being Freeway Airport, and the other one being the flower, the old nursery at the top of Church Road. In essence, the citizens are very concerned and downright angered by the upcoming, or not the upcoming, but the current status of zoning within the community. They expressed that. I wanted to make sure that I expressed it to the council today. Unfortunately, like I said, we were not able to take a vote, but I'm sure those folks will come up to speak, will speak about their concerns after I'm done. Are there any questions for me? That concludes my report.
All right, hearing no questions from members, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you.
All right, with that, I will declare the public hearing open.
Mayor Pro Tem, for the record, we did receive 10 comments via email for this item, which was forwarded to all of council, and then we do have members signed up to speak.
All right. All right, first up, Millie Hall.
Good evening, council. I'm Millie Hall. I live off of
Good evening,
Church
Ms.
Road,
Hall.
near Freeway Airport. I'm not going to say the same thing I said the other night when the advisory board did not have a quorum. I have something else different. I live down the street from Church Road. As I said, I know that the Bowie City Council and the planning director is probably, or will say, it's not up to us. The county council will make their own decision and move forward. We are here, we are aware of that, but we are here asking you to stand with us, the residents that will be impacted the most. This will also be a burden on the city of Bowie. The infrastructure cannot handle it. The schools are already overcrowded, EMS and our police department, and that includes the county police department. This will be irresponsible and reckless. So we're asking you to request in your recommendation to the County Council that the Sectional Map Amendment, CMA, public hearing be delayed, that the countywide map, CMA, determined zones for these properties be retained. Thank you for giving me this moment.
All right, next up is Miller Enzingli. All right, messed up the whole name. Apologies in advance if I messed up your name, so, sorry.
Okay, it's Miller Einsel. I live on Church Road, not far from the airport. I thank you for the opportunity to speak here before the council. We on this community are looking for the best interest of the community as a whole. And we have concerns over the proposed development of the airport. It's currently zoned AR, and it's in fitting with the community as it exists. We're here to ask you to maintain the current zoning for that airport. We're a community of people, and we have been having concerns over this for the past 3 years. In fact, we spoke here 3 years ago about this. And we've made our point, and it's been heard, and in fact, it's been acted on by the Court of Special Appeals at one point. And we're asking here for the support of the county council, of the city council, to help us, because we're a relatively small group. But the city of Bowie, you're heavy hitters, and your recommendation is going to go a long way when it comes to the county council and their consideration and their determination as to what happens here. So, there's just no planning for this. As the previous speaker said, there's no infrastructure. Our own county executive and council members have expressed the desire to have transit-oriented development. There is none here. There was no planning for it. There's the schools, there's fire and police, and all the other county services. We're talking about moving, instead of 60 homes there, over 500 homes. Plus, I think there's another 200 proposed for the Frank's Nursery. This has not been addressed. And I'm going to say to you the same thing I said to the planning board. This action reminds me of a child's book. Child opens the book, pulls on a string, and a cartoon pops up. Open the airport book, someone pulls on a string, and a development pops up. So what we need is smart development in this county, and I think that the city of Bowie has an excellent opportunity to reinforce that. I thank you for your time.
Next up, we have Patrice Murray.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. I am Patrice Murray, a resident of Bowie, Maryland. I come to express my continued concern regarding the development in and around Bowie. I attended the meeting of the Bowie Planning Board on September 13th to express this same concern. While the 3 members in attendance listened dutifully, unfortunately, they could not vote on a position to bring to you tonight, as they did not have a quorum. At great time and taxpayer expense, Plan 2035, Prince George's approved general plan, was developed for Prince George's County and Bowie, Mitchellville, and Vicinity in particular. With the use of revisions to the original document, the County Council initiated and changed the very scope of the plan. The county's planning board opposed 11 of the 15 revisions by the council. On a March 8th meeting of the Committee of the Whole, a Mr. Thomas Lester of the Planning Division said that the revisions were inconsistent in overall approach towards the growth management that limits commercial, mixed use, and higher density residential land use to certain areas of the master plan. The changes to make Freeway Airport site an RSF-A zone, as well as a change of zone to CG-O for the Frank's Nursery site, do not sit well with the citizens of Bowie, Mitchellville, and Glendale, all areas that would be impacted by such a change. A court of law overturned the very legislation proposed at Freeway Airport. I am frankly appalled at the very members of the county council who were elected to represent us, that they would try to override our courts. These developers gained so much from this county without feeling the negative impacts upon the residents. The additional developments will adversely impact the residents of this county. I can share with you my experience. My easiest route to work in College Park, Maryland was Route 193. My morning commute was no more than 25 minutes. However, on return, that same route at 5 o'clock took 60 minutes. Every development changed my commute. First, FedEx Field. On game and concert days, to a minimum of 90 minutes. Second, a development was added to an established community off 193. This changed my return commute to at least an hour and 10 minutes. The third, a senior and single-family home community currently under construction on 193 between 450 and Lotsford Vista Road, has slowed my commute even more, and not one unit is yet inhabited. I cannot imagine the impact of additional homes would have on the two-lane stretch of 193, with developments at Frank's Nursery property, not to mention the overflow from Church Road. During the Bowie Planning Board meeting, the attorney for the Church Road development stated there was no rush in pushing the plan through, as it was on the table for some 17 years. What was not said was that the reason the plan had not been passed was due to what would have constituted an ethics violation, which would not allow county council members to vote on legislation that involved developers from whom they had received donations. This rule was amended until December of this year by HB 980, in part a result of the county executive making a personal appeal. Otherwise, the county council would not have had a quorum to vote on the plan. I implore you, listen to the citizens of Bowie and surrounding areas in considering your recommendations to the county council. Our roads, our schools, our police and fire personnel cannot handle the increase. Thank you.
Next up is Rhonda Billingsley. Sorry, Rhonda.
Good evening, everyone on the council. I've lived in Bowie for about 20 years, and in those 20 years, I've seen South Lake being built, I've seen Amber Ridge being built, and I've seen a couple of other communities being built as well without any additional infrastructure in those communities. On any given day, you can see in Amber Ridge all of the traffic pouring out onto Pointer Road, taking an extra 10 minutes just going from one destination to another. If you're going to CVS, it may take you about an extra 10 minutes to make that turn during rush hour. I really agree with everyone that's been up here, and I've seen over the years, and I've met different people who have felt about the development in the area, and I've seen the city of Bowie explode, and I've seen people move because of that. The taxpayers have been very loud and vocal about this plan. We are in opposition of this. It is important to us that our quality of life, that we have better infrastructure, that we have better schools in our communities. The only way that the county council is going to realize is we've had a shift in our population move to Charles County in the last couple of years. If this continues to move forward, then what's going to happen is you're going to see more of your homeowners decrease in this area. Please, again, please listen to your taxpayers. We really are against this master plan. Thank you.
Next up, John Robinson.
Hello, my name is John Robinson. I live in Adelphi, Maryland, and you might ask why I would be here to testify on your sectional map amendment. Well, many years ago, I was chair of the Prince George's group of the Sierra Club, and I and my colleagues played a major role in protecting Belt Woods from development, which is on Church Road, just down the road from Freeway Airport. That was a successful campaign, and we protected Belt Woods. So I've been living in the county since 1976. I've seen a lot of changes. Unfortunately, one of the things that hasn't changed is that developers have way too much influence on how sectional map amendments go. I would like to support the statements of the previous people that have come up here. In particular, Patrice Murray's comment about how long it takes her to get from her place of employment back home. And she mentioned FedEx Field. That was another development that, while I was in Sierra Club, we opposed. We predicted that it would jam the Beltway. We predicted that people would have game goers parking in their lawns. And all of the negative predictions that we made have, in fact, come true. And so I would suggest that you should listen to the residents that have been facing, with the development that already has happened, problems with access to traffic. Now, our county has a problem. Prince George's County has the highest property tax rate of any county in the state of Maryland. And the residents bear 70% of that expense. Townhomes have historically never paid enough in property tax to fund the school, police, fire, and transportation infrastructure that's needed to support them. So essentially by approving this kind of high-density development where there's no mass transit infrastructure, the county, or at least the current majority, fortunately they won't be the majority come December, the current majority is basically creating a huge tax liability for the citizens of Prince George's County that we do not want to pay, because basically what happens is the development interests reap the profit and take it out of the county. But we pay the cost in terms of degraded quality of life, less green space, and higher taxes. So I would advocate that we leave the airport and Frank's Nursery in their current zones. That's what, I understand that the county council will be voting on this, but as has been stated, you people have a fair amount of influence, and so I'm simply asking you to use that influence to protect not only your own constituents, but everybody in the county who will end up having to pay the higher taxes to fund the schools and the infrastructure that hasn't even been funded yet. Thank you.
Next up, we have Maureen Fine.
I'm Maureen Fine, a 36-year resident at on Night Hill Lane here in Bowie. And I'm here tonight on behalf of the Prince George's County Sierra Club. And I ask you to oppose rezoning of Freeway Airport and adjacent properties along Church Road from AR to RSFA. And Janet Gingold, the current chair of the Prince George's County Sierra Club, sent you a very detailed letter of why we oppose this action. A development of this density would create an auto-dependent enclave on a rural road far from mass transit and other amenities. Congestion, air pollution, and greenhouse gas emissions would be exacerbated for decades. Prince George's County's Plan 2035 directs new residential growth to regional transit districts. Transit-oriented development is not simply building areas around mass transit, but it also means not building dense residential communities in areas without transit and amenities. The Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, in its review of the first 5 years of implementation of Plan 2035, found that the county has continued to approve sprawl development and has failed to meet the targets set in Plan 2035. Upzoning these properties would also conflict with major long-standing city council policies contained in the approved development review policies and guidelines, namely that the highest density of residential development should be limited to areas within the Bowie Local Center. The property in question is not. Upzoning Freeway Airport and adjoining properties to RSFA will exacerbate climate change and conflict with the county's climate action plan. The number one contributor to greenhouse gas emissions in the county is transportation. The key to reducing transportation emissions is to reduce vehicle miles traveled by making the land use decisions and transit investments that support alternative modes of transportation. This proposal will greatly increase sprawl development and greenhouse gas emissions. It conflicts with the county's and the city of Bowie's smart growth policies to concentrate new development in regional transit districts and local centers, and its implementation will exacerbate climate change rather than address the goals and recommendations of the county's climate action plan. For these reasons, we urge you to support retaining the AR zoning of Freeway Airport and adjacent properties along Church Road. Thank you.
Next up, we have Kathleen Burris.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Well, here I am again. I come before you yet again, but is anybody out there listening to us or our citizen concerns? Are they going to outer space in a black hole? We've talked about the lack of infrastructure. Well, is it too abstract or is it too ethereal when we talk about the lack of planning, the traffic, the schools, the depreciation of property values, environmental impact, air pollution, water and sewer impact, water pollution, inadequate public facilities, safety, and was just mentioned by the prior speaker, the lack of transit-oriented development. We've said this over and over again. Does it fall on deaf ears? In fact, I talked to a Bowie Senior High School senior. The kid takes advanced placement statistics and other classes in the morning. He said, I would like to go all day, but they've got me half day, and it's so crowded, I can't wait till I'm out of here. And we're gonna have 500 more homes. Okay, so what is real? If this infrastructure and lack of planning doesn't seem to make any impact on anybody, I'm on next door. I see this when I go to bed at night and I can't sleep. I see this midday. I wake up to it in the morning. Someone's home is being broken into. Everybody's Ring cameras are going off like microwaves. Cameras are everywhere. People are suggesting getting guns. People talk about how they have guns. What has happened to Bowie? Is this where we chose to live? Where there's get guns, get more cameras? Is barbed wire next? Are we going to have armed guards at our communities? And this next door is not even all over Prince George's County. This is where I live, Kathleen Beers, 1 mile from Freeway Airport. These are the one next door. I'm talking about all the communities near the airport. And we're going to have 500 more homes, and this is what's happening. Armed guards hijacking at the Shell station right there on Church Road and 450. Greed is driving this. Don't let it destroy Bowie. Since this airport freeway development, I had a list of people that I would send information to. Without exaggeration, over 10 families have left to other counties, and these are the people that live in the vicinity of the airport and say, I'm not going to go through this. You know what? Maybe penguins tell the story about housing density. I had the opportunity when I worked at NASA to spend a month in Patagonia in Argentina. It wasn't a social study, it was a research study. But you know what I found out? The penguins near the water where it's most convenient and extremely high density and the burrows are on top of each other, these penguins are always fighting. The bloodshed, their white fronts are covered in blood. And as you transect and you go farther back and farther back, these penguins, when we banded them, were docile, were friendly, they were inquisitive, as opposed to the ones in high-density areas that were continually fighting each other. So is that what we want? Maybe penguins will tell the story if somehow we citizens can't reach you. Keep the airport zoned AR. We plead for you to do that. You have the ability to do so. We thank you for your time.
Next up, we have Jill Oliver.
Okay. I thought I had a few more people in front of me, but anyway, good evening. Thanks for allowing me to speak. So good evening to the mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and city council members. I'm Jill Oliver from the Fairwood community, and I'm here today representing myself, my husband, and our residents, many of them who share the same concerns that everyone already talked about. We want to register our opposition to Prince George's County Council's intent to rezone the freeway airport and Frank's Nursery to allow hundreds of townhomes without adequate public input. In addition, we kindly request that the Bowie City Council take an affirmative stand by going on the record to request a delay of the Prince George's County Council's proposed public hearing, as it has not given residents adequate time to review and examine the implications of the proposed changes. Existing communities already have, as everyone said, overcrowded schools and stressed roads. It is critical that the residents are given real answers about how these potential changes will impact them, surrounding communities, and the environment. Opening the door to significant zoning changes requires due diligence. And part of that due diligence is conducting proper studies and gathering input from impacted residents, which has not been done to this point. Some of these zoning changes were included after hearing initial concerns from residents and even after trying to circumvent the democratic process by using illegal text amendments. Bowie and county residents' voices have continually been intentionally disregarded and quieted by the current Prince George's County Council. And all impacted municipalities need to stand up and demand this to stop. Again, we respectfully ask the Bowie City Council to request that the Sectional Map Amendment public hearing be delayed, and that the county-wide map amendment determined zones for these properties be retained. We are from the Fairwood community, and we are also against the improper and illegal methods used to circumvent the will of the residents of Prince George's County, and we want to register our opposition today. Thank you.
Next up, we have Carol Boyer.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. For Mayor Adams, I hope you feel better, and the City Council of Bowie. Let me put this over here. My name is Carol Boyer. I'm a resident of Mitchellville, Bowie, Maryland for 33 years. I live along Church Road in the rural agricultural zone, which means one single family home per 2 or more acres. That's one of the top reasons we built our home on our 3-acre parcel that we bought more than 34 years ago. I want to address the Bowie City Council on several reasons why this area along Church Road should not be changed to what the Prince George's County Council plans to do with their finagling the sectional map amendments to the Bowie, Mitchellville, and Vicinity Master Plan that incentivizes the developer and the owner of Freeway Airport site over the needs and desires of its citizens. Number one, this issue started in the spring of 2019 with the co-sponsorship of CB 172019 by council members Derek Davis and Calvin Hawkins, who currently serves as the county council chair. This bill was a zoning text amendment, a ZTA, that would allow for high-density townhouses to be built on the approximately 124 acres of land comprising the current Freeway Airport site. The first draft of the ZTA was going to allow almost 900 townhomes, that was the first draft, on what has been zoned rural agricultural for many, many years. The county's Office of Law sent a memo to the then county council chair that this bill might be, quote, subject to legal challenge, and indeed it was. The citizens of Bowie and Greenbelt, thank you, City of Bowie, and the City of Greenbelt and the Sierra Club of Prince George's County, and hundreds of citizens all sent opposition persons of record statements to the clerk of the county council and spoke in opposition at 2 hearings in the fall of 2019. After draft 2 of this CTA, the Office of Law sent another memo warning the county council again, stating that the bill may be subject to challenge as it appears to be drafted for a specific parcel. Did our county council listen to the own Office of Law? No. At a county council hearing on draft 2 of this CTA, the owner of Freeway Airport's property, Ms. Kim Rodenhauser, stated that, quote, this bill will help our family. It's not helping my family and all the other citizens of this county. Of course it will, as she and the developer would profit so much more from building hundreds of townhouses rather than what her property is zoned for, about 64 single-family homes. Then after draft 3 of this bill appeared in November 2019, the planning board chair, Elizabeth Hewlett, stated, this board frowns upon text amendments. The council really does not need yet a 4th draft of this bill. After draft 3 of this CTA, the planning board sent a November 5th, 2019 memo, quote, this bill is contrary to the intent of the council's adopted zoning ordinance. Townhouses are prohibited in the agricultural residential AR zone. Permitting townhouses in the AR zone would contradict the purpose statements for the zone. The planning board opposed with amendments. Number 2, draft 4 of this illegal text amendment was hastily adopted in late 2019 at a public hearing, but no public hearing was ever held on this last draft. The council co-sponsor, council member Derek Davis, hastily wrote in some new language for a draft 4, and the county council passed draft 4, which then became law. Therefore, in December 2019, the nonprofit Concerned Citizens, Prince George's County District 4 and surrounding areas filed a petition for judicial review. In May 2020, the circuit court judge ruled in favor of the district council, i.e. the county council. However, this judge did not provide any justification or rationale for her judgment. I think it was 2 sentences. I talked to some attorneys and they were horrified that she gave no rationale for her decision. Hence, the concerned citizens filed an appeal with the Maryland's Court of Special Appeals, and number 4, on June 29th of this year, the 3 judges on this Court of Special Appeals ruled unanimously in favor of the concerned citizens, stating, quote, "This case presents a worrisome dynamic between public and private interests. The airport owners have essentially bullied the council, as well as the attorneys representing the property developer, claiming that as holders of a non-conforming, allegedly dangerous airport, they will intensify the usage, making it more dangerous unless the council accords them the density of their choice." The court's, that's unquote. The court decision stated, quote, "The district council's enactment of CB 17 unlawfully violates the statutorily prescribed uniformity requirement and therefore is illegal and unenforceable. It shall be stricken in its entirety," unquote. The Maryland Code of the Land Use article requires zoning to be, quote, "uniform for each class or kind of development throughout a district or zone," unquote, and to be equally applicable to similarly situated properties, reasonable and based upon the public policy to be served. We don't know what the public policy is to be served by this zoning text amendment. The county council members that co-sponsor this never could tell us. They never could tell us what the rationale was. Also, the Maryland Court of Special Appeals decision referenced a previous legal precedent that the district council cannot devise arbitrary zoning carve-outs via text amendments without stating the public policy served.
I'm sorry,
What is
Ms. Boyer, I'm going to let you wrap up because I did not
I'm
say this
going
in
to
the
wrap
beginning.
up.
But
So-
just for reference for everybody, you have
And
5
you've
minutes
heard from all the
when
rest,
speaking.
and I will let you know
Thank you.
that we asked our county council chair on August 24th to delay the hearing on September 27th for the reasons that you heard, because the planning board is not going to have all of their analyses done. And we have very little time to do that, and we hope the Bowie City Council wasn't. Why is the county council so adamant in ensuring that what they tried to do with their ZTA of CB 17 get approved by the courts against the will of their citizens? So we still haven't heard from County Council Chair Calvin Hawkins. He told us almost 4 weeks ago he would let us know if he would change the agenda item, and we have not heard anything from him. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Michael Bridges.
Hi, my name is Michael Bridges. I'm a resident of Bowie, and I'm here to sort of answer or also to oppose, or no, let me start again. So I have 2 requests for the council. The first request is that when you go before the city council, your representative goes before the county council's public hearing for the sectional map amendment. I'm requesting that you postpone or delay the public hearing. I'm asking you request that the public hearing be delayed before you go. That's one. And then concurrent with that request, I'm asking that that the city ask that the zones for Freeway Airport and Frank's Nursery properties take on the zones originally designated by the countywide map amendment. And so let me talk about the reasons why. So citizens are often criticized for not sort of making emotional and passionate statements at public hearings as opposed to informed and rational sort of ones. So recently, county council emails revealed that the timeline for the sectional map amendment process has been severely compressed in opposition to the planning staff. On August 25th, I asked Mr. Lester, who's the leading planner for the sectional map amendment, when will the analysis of the SMA rezoning request forms be complete? His response was possibly. It could be included in the analysis of testimony at the joint hearing, but more likely it's going to be on October 4th after the close of the public record. This is after the public hearing. So how can the public provide informed comments without hearing the important professional analysis of the planning department staff? Right, so I'm asking you to say, look, the citizens need to hear this analysis first before you go through and have the public hearing. So for my point 2 about requesting that the zones be put back to the countywide map amendment, so regarding those properties, Freeway Airport and Frank's Nursery, these zones proposed by the Sectional Map Amendment are contrary to the General Plan 2035 and against good planning principles. This fact and the objective analysis provided by the Planning Department staff doesn't change just because it's substituted in the master plan as a land use policy. So look, when the planning staff says these particular zones are not in accordance with good planning principles, just because they get inserted and substituted in as a land use policy doesn't change that analysis. So one may think that the standard of review for sectional map amendments is that whoever's doing the review, which is you guys, the city planning staff, the county planning staff, and ultimately the district council, you might think that their hands, that they can only look at what is in the past master plan for guidance, but that would be incorrect. According to section 273503 on sectional map amendment decision standards, it says sectional map amendments should conform to the principles of orderly comprehensive land use planning and stage development, and shall be based on General Plan 2035 and applicable area master plans. The advisability of a sectional map amendment is a matter of committed to legislative discretion of the district council and is not controlled by any one faction.
Mr. Bridges, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to wrap up now.
Okay.
Thank you.
The approval of a sectional map amendment of the district council should consider the consistency of the proposed master plan, 2, the character of the area under review, and 3, the sustainability of the suitability of particular uses. So my general point is that it's not context-sensitive infill. So that is one key, and I challenge the attorneys for Frank's Nursery and Freeway Airport to justify why the land underneath US 50, where it's surrounded by 1 acre and 2 acre lots, how putting in the density according to what they're proposing is context-sensitive infill, which is what is demanded by General Plan 2035. So basically, that's inconsistent with all of the things I just stated, and all of the reviewers basically have the ability to make that assessment on their own. And you guys can do the same thing and recommend to the county council that those zones be put back to where they should be because they're inconsistent.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bridges.
Yep.
Next up, we have Rob Antonetti.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. For the record, my name is Robert Antonetti with the law firm of Shipley and Horn, and we're pleased to be here tonight on behalf of Freeway Realty LLC, the contract purchaser of the Freeway Airport property. I'd like to thank your staff for their presentation and their staff report. We would encourage you to support their position on the Freeway Airport request, which does represent a rezoning to the RSFA zone. The RSFA zone was specifically recommended by the 2022 Bowie, Mitchellville, and Vicinity Master Plan. We've heard some testimony tonight regarding that master plan. Initially, that plan recommended that the airport be placed in the rural and agricultural areas category. That would be a land use reduction over what the 2006 master plan recommended. In fact, it would have prevented the extension of likely of water and sewer into the property. It's akin to the rural tier, if those who remember the prior general plan. It would create a rural enclave just around the airport, when everything else in the future land use map designation recommended residential uses. The testimony in the record recommended that it go to residential medium. In fact, the City of Bowie's position was that it recommended residential low or residential medium in that master plan. That master plan was approved March 8th, 2022. That master plan is beyond appeal. It does set forth the land use policies moving forward in terms of the sectional map amendment. The master plan last was updated 16 years ago. I said 17 at the Bowie Advisory Planning Board. I apologize for the math. It was also done at the same time as the last sectional map amendment. The county zoning ordinance recommends that a master plan be updated looked at to be updated every 6 years. So a great deal of time has passed since the last master plan and since the last sectional map amendment. Something during the leading up to the master plan approval, there was a preliminary plan of subdivision which looked at a very thoughtful layout for this project. Again, this property is developed with a general aviation airport, which is a legal non-conforming use, which is a use that is not permitted by right in the underlying zone and is not deemed inherently compatible with the zone or surrounding properties. Nonetheless, the layout that was proposed was carefully designed. It had amenities, it had miles of trail, it had a large community building up front, and it had a mix of single-family detached and single-family attached townhouses at a little more than 4 dwelling units per acre. There's been a lot of testimony that public facilities can't handle this. The preliminary plan of subdivision looked at all types of APF requirements for the units that were proposed for the airport. It tested for adequate roads, adequate schools, water and sewer, fire and police response times, public utilities, environment, historic resources, etc. It passed every one of the tests that are set up by the county. So with regards to that, I do rebut any statement that there was no planning effort done and that there's public facilities were not looked at thoroughly. They were. With regards to the sectional map amendment, one of the main criteria of approval is conformance with the master plan. Again, the master plan is beyond appeal. It specifically recommends a residential land use medium for this site. The site does abut a freeway. The site is actively used as a general aviation airport that will close if it's redeveloped. The site is next to a high-tension power line, is 130 acres. And again, we contend that the density of a little more than 4 dwelling units per acre, 4.23 to be precise, is appropriate density for this location and in replacement of the use that is currently on the property. We heard some testimony about CB 17. We are aware of the decision of the Court of Special Appeals. We respect the Court of Special Appeals. We respect their decision. We also disagree with it. We have requested further review of that decision. But nonetheless, that is not what is going on tonight. The Court of Special Appeals, in their decision, at the end, stated that it was appropriate for the County Council to look at this through a master plan and sectional map amendment process. That would have been, in the Court of Special Appeals opinion, the most appropriate way to look at the redesignation of land uses on the property. And that's what we're here to do. The County Council has done that by approving the master plan update and the sectional map amendment that is before you today recommends a zoning category that's consistent with that master plan. I do thank you for your consideration, and I appreciate your attention tonight. Thank you.
Next up, we have Andrew Rout.
Good evening. I'm Andrew Rout with St. John Properties, one of the applicants. You know us pretty well after a few years. St. John is invested in Bowie. I think we are part of Bowie. Melford was a thoughtfully planned community, first-class materials, landscaping, operation, and execution. I think most people would argue that the project is good for the city. It's the largest employment hub in the city of Bowie. It's the largest taxpayer in the city of Bowie. So with all that being said, I think our track record of quality exists there. In fact, this very body in February approved resoundingly, one negative vote, the townhomes that were proposed at Bowie. You know, the high-quality brick, no vinyl, that whole thing. That's essentially what would be planned over at the Freeway Airport. It's the same kind of thing. So we're invested in this. We've been invested in the community. We have 1.5 million square feet up the road. We're not going anywhere. One thing that I've heard tonight, and I've heard it before too, is they said there was lack of thought with the planning. I just took a list. I polled the consultants. There were 17 consultants working on this for the past 2 years, inclusive of landscape architects, land planners, traffic engineers, sound attenuation engineer, multiple civil engineers, various land use attorneys, and market experts. Grand total is 17 of them. Ranging from 17 years at Penn State, 18 years at lots of Penn States, lots of Marylands, Virginia Tech. So to say that there was no planning involved in this I just take huge exception with that. In fact, what people should do is go back and look at the old video, because when we were in SDRC and the various planning aspects with it that are all televised, Park and Planning Commission said the project looked great from a plan-wise, as the way it was laid out and all the functionality. They only focused on saying you need to pay particular attention to the sound wall along Route 50 and connectivity between the various parts of the neighborhood vis-a-vis sidewalks and crosswalks. So to say that this was unplanned, I take heavy exception with that. You know, as Rob mentioned, 6 miles of sidewalks, 1.1 miles of trails, 3 pocket parks, pool, clubhouse. We're talking about 22 and 24-foot townhomes with single-family dwelling units. The townhomes unoptioned, or the market folks are saying they're going to start at about $600,000, and the single families will go from $850 around $900. Again, somebody talked about crime. I mean, we've had stuff dumped at the airport during the summer. We're looking into that. And you know, at the end of the day, it's an airport. One of the speakers basically went through some of the chronology of the hearings in September of 19. But what they failed to say was between one hearing that we had in the planning board on a Tuesday and the following hearing we had that Thursday at 11 in the morning, a plane crashed off the end of the runway into Route 50 and closed it for the entire day. So nobody's talking about the fact that there's an airport smack dab in the middle of a residential community that was built many, many, many years after the airport existed. So I find that kind of funny that, you know, when we're talking about the hearings, no one mentioned that someone almost got killed in the middle of the 2 hearings in the same week. APF, again, I'm struggling with that. Love it or hate it, the houses that have been built in the last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the folks are talking about tonight, they went through the same testing. So when that developer was building the community they now live in, they were going through the same prescribed and the same manuals that are identified in the APF, which is traffic, schools, public safety, fire. So it's not a fact that you're saying, you know, I agree with this, I don't. It's codified. It's in a book. It's in a manual. All the documents were reviewed by both the Park and Planning Commission, traffic folks, and all the various disciplines, including schools. The same with, so Park and Planning looked at it, DPI looked at it, and if you really want to be, you know, really think about it, so did State Highway Administration. So, you know, people could say, oh, Park and Planning is in cahoots with every. State Highway Administration doesn't care about this project. They look at what the manual says and does it comply, yes or no. It's not a maybe. They run the tests. They say, now, people might not like the tests, but that is the test. It's like IRS tax book. It says, thou shalt do the following. And when those things are hit and those values are measured and those values are achieved, you have your APF. If you don't like it, go change the manuals. But the same communities that are now talking about it, we're in the same APF and the same type of testing regime. So we're all talking about the same thing, but the goalposts seem to be moving. And I guess the last point I'd like to make is, this is going to be a high-quality development. I've heard talking about sprawl. Well, I would describe sprawl as one house on a 3-acre lot. That is the definition of sprawl. Thank you.
All right, next we have Eric Afukwa.
This mic. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. My name is Eric Afakwa. I'm probably one of the most impacted people from this development and some of the legislative changes that are proposed. I live directly across from the airport. And interestingly, some of the points the representative with St. John's raised are some of my arguments against some of these things. Like, we're complaining about the lack of capacity. There isn't requisite capacity for schools, roads. So we live there, but we're complaining because we don't have enough resources to support our needs. And so that's the issue. So long story short, I wanted to echo most of the people's comments here, particularly the gentleman with the bow tie, the ponytail, and Mike Bridges. I think they made two good points. I honestly don't think the amount of tax revenue you're going to generate will. The only way this works is if you're not planning on serving the needs of the community. I mean, it's really that simple, because you need at least 2 or 3 new schools, you need more offices, you need more roads, you need development to provide the capacity. So you're going to be in the red. It's like throwing a cookout, all you have are hot dogs, and you're inviting more and more people. All you have is liquor and hot dogs. Eventually, people are going to come to the party and get annoyed. There's a fight's going to break out, and people are going to leave. It's not going to be a good party. So you want the best quality services for your community, and if you can't provide that, keep it as is. It's better not to touch things and keep it as is than to add more fuel to the fire. And the fact that the airport's around, that's one of the reasons why I moved to the area. But one of the most heartbreaking things that's happened since I've lived there was the little kid that got hit by the car. That's the most recent fatality that I know of along the Church Road corridor. So that young man the parents had to take their kids all the way to Georgetown Prep. Why? Because nobody trusts the schools. Like, you have to drive out of the county to get good schools. That's the perception. It's about density. It's about, even as is, you need to remake the schools. You don't have enough money for that. So adding more fuel to the fire is not going to help. And I don't think you're really going to earn that much money in taxes to pay for what you need. So, Councilmember Harrison, I think hopefully you'll be my representative. I live in District 4. So hopefully you'll be on the same page and consider it. Financially, it just doesn't add up. I mean, you need to kind of make significantly more to give the people what they need anyway. So this won't really help. So I echo everything most people said, especially the gentleman with the ponytail and Mike Bridges. I highly encourage you to ask the questions that he said. Sorry, I got new aligners, so I got a headache and kids and all that. So I forgot what he said, but it sounded good at the time. So have a good night, and thanks.
Next up, we'll have Monica Roebuck.
Good evening, Mayor Adams and Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. I am Monica Roebuck, and I am a resident of Bowie. I am here to speak in opposition of the proposed development on Church Road, on Bellhaven, and at the former Frank's Nursery. The development would change residents' quality of life as we now know it, and not for the better. This project would create more congestions on the road, as we have already heard, reduce the amount of green space, and worst of all, it would make our classrooms overcrowded. As an educator, I think about how schools will be affected. And they say there was a survey done. I never received a survey, and I don't know anyone who has received a survey. And if I did, I would say that school construction is not keeping pace with development in our county. Building more houses would add to the overcrowding in our schools. We need to think about the children and not our immediate needs. We are leaving our children a weaker school system than we had years ago. They deserve the right to a quality education, a chance to be successful, and to have a great quality of life. In closing, I want to ask that the city express to the council that that the residents of Bowie oppose the development, and that the council keep the countywide map amendment in place with the current zoning. The people have spoken, and they oppose this development. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your time.
All right, with that, I will call the public hearing closed and move on to questions and comments from our members. I'm going to use shared discretion here, given that this is clearly an issue that folks are super concerned about, and we want to be diligent and give members as much time to ask questions to staff. So for members' awareness, I'm going to go in district order and allow you to make your comments and questions to staff so that we, are easy with our time here, as we have a lot of folks here in chambers and folks watching in TV land as well, but also so that you guys can have the most opportunity to ask as many questions. So with that being said, Councilmember Steph.
I'm going to defer to Councilmember Wolfley to proceed. I know he's going to preempt almost all my questions, and I figure it'd be better for him to do the work. Thank you.
Councilmember Wolfley.
That's a lot of pressure, and I'm not sure I'm up to it, but that's okay. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out, and I'd like to thank you for your continued enthusiasm and engagement with the community. It's very much appreciated. And for the representatives also from the developer side as well, we appreciate your time. You did not have to be here, and it's certainly worth hearing all aspects of the issue, because there's always more than meets the eye. City staff would like to thank you for your work on this. I'm going to start with some questions, and I apologize. I realize that I truly am a Luddite of the highest order, and I probably should have just printed it out and scratched it out by hand instead of trying to reconcile it on the digital form here. So I'm going to start off with a couple questions, if we could. Let's start with the property at Free State Mall let's see, I think that one, I forgot what the number is on that one. It was a proposal from the owner of the property, and that number was Free State Mall. Well, I'll tell you what, let's just go down the individual property owner requests, and we'll do them in order if I could. Does that work for you, Joe?
Yes.
Okay. The Governor Bridge Road, the car dealerships associated with that, the TAC E versus CS, what's the distinction from a meaningful perspective?
There was some discussion during the master plan review that the TAC E zone was a little too restrictive to accommodate the auto dealerships. The auto dealerships were previously in the CM zone, which was more of a highway-oriented zone on the periphery of the community. And so the property owners presented testimony during the CMA and wanted to see the property zone CS. And so CS does fit the type of use that's out there now, and we would support that.
Okay. So then on the Leland Road National Capital Park business park, the IH, talk to me about that one as well.
That's an industrial zone classification that fits the project as they've defined it. The National Capital Business Park is more of a distribution hub that they're trying to establish there, and the IE zone in fact, was a little bit too restricting of the type of development that they wanted to do. And so IH was the correct zone in order to accommodate the development proposal.
Okay. So item number 3 here is, I think concerning to me here, where we got the Northwest Crane Highway 6513 and 6517. Why do we want to change those to a CS?
If you'll recall, there was a request in a while back to approach a text amendment to allow the property to be developed as a commercial property without actually changing the zone, and they withheld that. They didn't pursue that text amendment because they wanted to come through the master plan process and do it according to the master plan. So the master plan, in fact, does have policies that have been established, just like what we were talking about with Freeway Airport. There was a revision made by the county council prior to approval of the master plan that set the policy for this property as a commercial area along Route 3. And so the correct zoning, given that land use recommendation, is the CS zone. So when we reviewed these requests, staff looked at the standard of review for a sectional map amendment, which is essentially, does the zoning match the master plan recommendation? And this is one of those cases in which it does.
But at the same time, that area there is one area where we continue to have issues with traffic, correct? And we had to have a traffic signal put in on the southbound, and this, if memory serves me, is on the northbound, is that correct?
This property has access to the southbound lanes of Route 3.
But not the northbound?
To my recollection, it does not.
Because I thought it was in the median. And
it is in the median, but I don't believe there's an access on the northbound side.
Yeah, yeah. This is. I have concern with this, and and I'll ask my colleagues later if willingness to concur on that, retaining it at its current zoning level. I understand the issues associated with kind of the proper use. But the proper use assumes that the situation can handle it. And I look at it right now, and that road just doesn't have an opportunity for, excuse me, I shouldn't say have an opportunity. It wouldn't be prudent to add even more traffic in and out on that section of that roadway, even if it did conform with some grander policy. What would be the current policy? The current is AR. What would be under the current terminology? What would be the consistent to AR in the old form?
The previous zone was the RA zone. So the AR is the equivalent of the RA. So
okay.
If you would want to leave it that way, it would just be to retain the current AR zone.
Retain, okay. All right, and then if we go down to Jericho Park Road, Sylvan Drive, nothing there. The Church Road property, which we've heard so much discussion about, is represented by number 6, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So the AR, to maintain the current look and feel would be to keep it at the AR level, correct?
That would be to retain the existing zoning.
Yeah.
And again, the master plan has a land use policy that recommends the residential median.
Okay. So AR is really the preferred on my stand. RSFA, what is the designation on that?
That's residential single-family attached.
Attached, thank you. And then on the shopping center, this one is of concern to me. The 15550 Annapolis Road Free State Shopping Center. Currently, we have commercial, and then there's a strip of land behind it that has served as a buffer between the neighbors behind and the retail establishments there. What is the thinking there for switching that over to CGO?
Well, the request, really, the property is in commercial development. The master plan did recommend redevelopment in that back area. And so under the CGO zone, which is a more generous land use zone than the previous CSC, you have more options to do, for example, residential development. There were some illustrations in the master plan that showed a potential redevelopment of that back area so that the CGO zone would accommodate that type of development.
In the current zoning is RR, right?
For that back portion, yes.
Okay. And is that the current label as well for maintaining, if we want to maintain that buffer?
Yes, you would just leave the property
Okay.
in the RR zone.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big concern. We've had issues, obviously, with the Marketplace Shopping Center and the development of that property, and the great concern for those neighbors is the encroachment of higher density and taller buildings in proximity to the existing Levitt homes, which tend to be ranchers and small colonials. I'm quite concerned about that and would like to see this retained as an RR as well. Amber Ridge, wasn't that property already changed once through text amendment?
The Amber Ridge property actually went through the piecemeal rezoning process years ago, and they were zoned to the MXT zone to allow for residential development as opposed to the original commercial idea that they had for a commercial strip shopping center. So they discussed with the community at that time, when they went through the county's piecemeal rezoning process, the possibility of doing either apartments or doing townhouses. Eventually, they settled on townhouse development, and at the density that is proposed there, the countywide map amendment mapped the property into the RMF 48. But the request for the CGO is for only the front portion of the property that has always been assumed to be commercial pad sites in their redevelopment plan, and they would be precluded from doing the commercial pad sites if the whole property stayed in the RMF 48. So they were asking for CGO for the front portion to honor their land use concept that they've had and that they've been working with the community with for years.
So it's not the entire parcel going to CGO?
That's absolutely
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you. Frank's Nursery is RE, which I think I'd like to keep that way as well, notwithstanding staff recommendations. The property on number 11, 3704 Church Road, south of Freeway Airport, opposite down Whistle Way. What is there at that property now?
I don't know the exact land use, but the property owner, it's a fairly small piece of property. The property owner, I think, had the intention of piggybacking on the Freeway Airport development design and trying to get their property set up so that they could develop it similarly. There are no recommendations in the master plan that would support that property getting the same treatment as the Freeway Airport from a zoning perspective. So that's why we did not support it.
Excellent, thank you. The Boys and Girls Club, I assume that allows them to continue in that way, correct? Without any change for AG?
Right, I think the property owner pointed out that the property is not publicly owned, and the ROS is the zone that is really reserved for publicly owned open space. And so it's actually owned by, I think, a nonprofit, and it's not publicly owned. And so really the distinction is, if it's not publicly owned, the AG zone would be the lowest density zone that it would be appropriate to put on there.
All right. And number 18, where we've got the Mitchellville Road going to CS instead of RR, what's the logic there?
That's change number 18.
Yeah, proposed by the
Right, the property owner. The, this property is right at the corner of Mitchellville Road and US 301. It has been traditionally part of what was called the Pointer Ridge Activity Center area, which extends from Mitchellville Road down to Pointer Ridge along 301. The property owner has for years expressed an interest in developing the property commercially, but it was it was zoned residential. So this is the opportunity or the appropriate time for the property owner to ask for a commercial classification, and staff supports it for those reasons.
Okay, thank you. Let me see what other, I found it interesting there was no input or request from the folks at Hilltop Plaza and that strip of property behind Hilltop. Have you heard anything about that? You know, there's that, what's now a parking space. It's actually I think it's an RR zone that is also a buffer between the shopping center and the residential.
We've heard nothing from that property owner about that. I think they just want to maintain the status quo.
Okay, great. All right, I think that answers my questions at the moment. I'll yield the floor at the moment. Thank you.
All right, next we'll have Councilmember Steph.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I appreciate Mr. Minor going through a lot of these with us. I know we'll have some more to do this evening. I appreciate your explanations for the particular parcels that Councilmember Wolfley brought up. I do want to take a second to share some disconnected thoughts and hopefully not take up our whole night with them. I think one, as one of the speakers mentioned earlier, you know, we aren't going to be the final decision makers on this. So we're making a recommendation tonight. We hear what the community is saying. I grew up in this community. I've lived here my whole life. I've seen it change. I remember when it was mostly woods and rips, and it was cool when Grace's Fortune opened up. And so I get the frustration with all the changes that we've seen. I get the frustration with the loss of green space we've had over the years. And I do agree there is a big disconnect between the county's Plan 2035, which calls for focusing development in areas where you can do mass transit and limiting development in areas where you're just taking out green space and adding to sprawl. I think the biggest challenge we have is, you know, in every community across the country, people are sitting in meetings just like this, debating development projects. That's not unusual. I think the challenge that we have is that in different communities, there's varying levels of trust between residents and their local representatives. And unfortunately, in Prince George's, one of the things we see over and over, it's often repeated in the county's many blue ribbon commissions, is we live in a county where there's just very low public trust in county decision makers, especially on issues of development. And frankly, looking at our history, there's good reason for that. I unfortunately think the county sometimes leans a little bit too hard into doing things with a lack of transparency or in a manner that feels prejudicial towards certain interests. And I get why residents hate that. And I get why there's sort of a pall of suspicion over development. By the same token, I'm a little bit concerned by some of the feedback that we sometimes get, because I think there's sometimes a misunderstanding about how certain events play out. I spend a lot of time door knocking in Bowie. I've been knocking on doors in this community for 15, 16 years now. And I got to tell you, yeah, there's been a lot of growth in Bowie, but people are coming here not just because there's new homes, they're coming here for the services. And what I'm seeing, especially in the last 5 years, you know, I would go to a cul-de-sac with 5 homes, and there'd be one family in each of those 5 homes. There'd be 2 cars in the driveway, maybe one adult kid in one of the homes. Now I go to the same cul-de-sac, there's 20 cars in that cul-de-sac. There's 2 to 3 families living in each of these single-family homes. People are coming to Bowie, and they're living here. They're just not enough housing to give houses to everyone. And so, yeah, the schools are overcrowded, but I spent a lot of time talking to our teachers and principals, and what we often see is that the schools are overcrowded because people are sending their kids and grandkids to live with their grandparents and aunts and uncles who live in Bowie. And the families are just growing even though the housing supply isn't. And so the same amount of tax money is coming out of the homes, but it's supporting even more families. And so, we talk a lot about our, how proud we are of our services here, and we haven't had to raise our property tax rate in Bowie in 14 years, which is great. Our rate is 40 cents for every $100 of assessed property value. I've been spending some time in Greenbelt lately. Theirs, it's 80 cents, literally twice what ours is. And I can tell you that our services are definitely comparable with theirs in most respects. The reason for that is because we've grown over the years. We've added to the number of taxpayers. And it's how we've been able to expand our service offering without having to raise property taxes. In fact, we grew a police department from scratch and were able to get tax cuts from the county while doing it over the years. We got 2 of them. And we never had to raise our tax rate. That was made possible because we grew a lot. We added to our tax base, residential and commercial. And so when folks say, oh, you're going to build a lot, that's going to cause my taxes to go up, it's not really how that works. What tends to happen is people are going to come here whether or not there's houses. The only question in front of us is whether there's more taxpayers to cover those services. So if we were to stop all new development in the area, okay, there'd probably be, there'd be fewer homes, there'd be more green space, and those are good things, I'm not debating that. But there would still be more people living here, the roads would still be congested, the schools would still be overcrowded, and there'd just be fewer individual properties paying taxes to support it all. So our overall tax rate would be a lot higher. So I just want to clarify that, because I think that's something that often comes up, and I think that's a misnomer that I think makes it hard for folks to predict how things are going to play out down the road. I'm not thrilled at all with how the county went about the zoning change for Free State Airport. I do have a question for the applicant, which is that, if hypothetically the parcel isn't able to put the townhomes there, what would be the maximum number of allowed units under existing zoning? What ultimately could get built there is my question. I can ask Joe and save the applicant getting up.
If the zoning is not changed, that would be the RA or the AR now, which is 1 unit per 2 acres. And that particular applicant had initially submitted a request for a water and sewer plan amendment based on development in the RA zone.
And so with the acreage of the property, how many units are we talking?
I believe the request was something like 48 single-family detached lots.
48 single-family detached lots.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I'm going to defer to my colleagues for the remainder of the evening, but I think I raised the points that I wanted to raise so far. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I apologize. There was one property I wanted to raise a question about. The ice rink property that we have currently not being used, LMXC versus ROS. Can you speak to the implications for future use to us?
Well, the LMXC is a classification that fits on previously approved planned development projects, and as that parcel was part of the Fairwood approval, which was in the MXC zone, it was given that LMXC designation in the CMA. But it's consistent with the recommendations of the master plan to go take public property and put public property into the ROS zone. So that's the rationale.
Right. And as a public property on ROS, we can make use of it for services such as parks or amenities and things like that, correct?
Yes, it's limited really to public park open space type purposes,
okay.
Recreation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ndebumadu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you so much, residents, for coming out this evening and sharing your comments with us. And also want to thank the applicant for coming out and also city staff for your presentation. So my colleague from District 2 asked a lot of thoughtful questions that was really insightful, and I think the majority of many of our questions. And then my colleague from District 1 echoed a lot of really great thoughts and a lot of good points to kind of tie some of the disconnect together. Recently, we engaged a consultant to do a market study for us to help us understand what the attractability was for Bowie and why people were finding Bowie to be a vibrant community and essentially what the pillar of Bowie was. When we conducted that study, and I'm going to tie this together in a second, when we conducted that study, we learned a lot of different things. We learned that people felt like, and these are people who are in Bowie and people who are attracted to Bowie. We learned that people felt like Bowie had excellent school options. We learned that people felt like it was a central location that's easy accessible by major highways. We learned that people felt like Bowie is a diverse, inclusive, and suburban haven that embraces many different cultures and many different spiritualities. We learned that there were a number of different community-based policies and community-based initiatives that come from the community. Having a large activist population, I think we saw that this evening by many of your comments and many of you who have came out. We learned that there are a number of different recreational activities and programs for people of all ages. And that's what makes Bowie such a wonderful community. I say that to say and echo a lot of Michael Estev's comments over at District 1 is Bowie is a thriving community that is very attractable, and there's really nothing that we are going to be able to do to stop people from wanting to come to Bowie, because it is a vibrant community. It's a beautiful community. It's vibrant, it's thriving, and it's going to continue to grow. If you look at just where we were 5 years ago and where we are today, we've doubled in numbers in terms of the amount of people that are living per household in this area and the amount of students that are attending our public school system. But there was a gentleman who spoke with a ponytail, and he brought up some really phenomenal thoughts that I want to underscore. Bowie is a very powerful community that does pay a large tax base, and that tax base then gets absorbed by Prince George's County. And what the challenge is for this city council, and I think it's going to be for a lot of us going forward, is that tax base and that money then goes to other communities and does not get poured back into Bowie. And unfortunately, that's not a challenge by the city council, that's a challenge by the county council. And I think a lot of you who have come out today, who have shared your thoughts, what I want to encourage you to do is, you guys have an enormous and tremendous amount of power. You're all voting citizens that are here residing in Bowie. You have the power to put particular individuals in office who echo those thoughts. That lies at the county level. When you talk about the amount of tax money, the amount of incentives that come out of Bowie that get poured into other communities, those are power and different things that you have access to today to be able to change that dynamic. Because the reality is, like Michael Estev said in District 1, we don't have zoning authority. We don't control the development that comes into Bowie, and we, at the end of the day, don't have the end say-so. And I think we all know that. And so I want to be able to encourage you, the same way that you're sharing your thoughts with us and the same way that you're coming out and letting us know how you feel about the development in Bowie, I encourage you to continue to also do that with the county, which I know that you're doing as well. But I also want to echo Michael Estev's thoughts in terms of smart development. I'm not against all development. I'm definitely for smart development, will continue to be for smart development, because I think in order for us to continue to grow as a thriving community, we're going to have to be very strategic about the types of development that we do allow in the city of Bowie. I think we're going to have to be very bullish and very vocal about the money that we send to Prince George's County that ends up fueling and funneling different communities that don't get poured back into Bowie. And we're going to have to be a lot more vocal about that. And I think that's what you're starting to see on this city council. But I also want to just shed some light, because I know that over the last couple of years, development has had a very contentious, I guess you would say, notion around it. A lot of these developers that are investing in our community do pay a significant amount to be able to develop in this community. There is a certain amount of money that goes towards public safety. There is a certain amount of money that they pay per dwelling unit that also goes towards education. But again, once those actual investments happen, it lies at the county level for them to make the decision on whether that money then comes back into the community of Bowie or if it goes into other communities. And typically it does go into other communities. So I will also learn from the rest of the thoughts of my colleagues here this evening and see what the rest of my colleagues have to say. But I do want to thank you for coming out and making your voices heard, and just wanted to share that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gardner?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I wanted to say to the residents of Bowie and those that are visitors tonight to council session that I always listen to the residents. My number one rule for myself is always to remember my customer. My customer is the resident of the city of Bowie. And taking that into consideration, and you all elected me to be the voice for yourselves. So I've always provided that voice and that vote and voting on your behalf. Tonight, we've heard from many residents and visitors. We've heard tonight from a number of those that are on both sides of the issue. And my colleagues tonight made a number of statements of which I totally agree with, to where we have to be smart about development. We have to make sure it's the right project. We have to make sure that it's not a negative impact on the community at large. And we also have to be mindful of proper development that speaks to infrastructure that supports the development. The roads are in place, hospitals, classrooms. These things are in place, and we have to be mindful of that prior to approving many of these projects. Councilmember Stev mentioned smart growth, smart development. He echoes the exact words of myself and many others on our council. And I want to also say, I totally agree with Councilmember Stev that many of these decisions have been made without transparency, in the dark. And this is not something that I operate in. I've always operated in the light, and I will continue to do so. So with that being said, we've heard a number of our residents, our neighbors, and visitors tonight to speak. And I've come up with my decision. As I said to you, I've always ruled on the side of the resident because I know who my customer is. I know who elected me. I know who I'm supposed to represent. And that, again, is the residents of Bowie. And again, I thank you all for coming out this evening, and I defer to my other colleagues. Thank you again.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilwoman Harrison?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Before I move into my comments, I just have a question for Mr. Minor. In regards to Frank's Nursery, from RE to Commercial General and Office, if that zoning were to move forward, what types of building can happen in that zoning?
Councilmember Harrison, the CGO zone is Commercial General Office, and that permits retail uses, it permits office uses, and it also permits residential uses of many different types.
So essentially mixed use?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So my comments are, I love Bowie, I love Prince George's County, but we deserve better. I notice in our city, South Lake, Amber Ridge, Mill Branch, Milford, we're building a lot of townhomes. I don't believe we necessarily need additional townhomes built. I would like to, especially on the freeway airport property, if you consider single-family homes on larger lots of land commensurate with the homes in the surrounding neighborhood. It just seems to make sense to me that they would be equivalent in cost with the neighboring communities. But I want to say that I'm not supportive of higher zoning allowing higher density at the freeway airport, and don't agree that we need more townhomes. So I support that we keep the freeway airport zone as currently zoned as AR. And I'm all for decreasing greenhouse gas emissions and lessening the environmental impact and impact to our schools and our infrastructure. In regards to Frank's Nursery, I'd also like to retain the current zoning. I do agree, though, that we need more, we need to build our commercial tax base. So I would like to see more amenities come to our city and our county. Right now, we're suffering as far as our restaurants. We don't get anything higher end in regards to amenities. So I would love to see that happen, and that would build our commercial tax base as opposed to our residential tax base. So that is certainly something that I look forward to supporting. So I'm all for that, but I just wanted to let the residents know that I hear you, and I do support keeping the zonings for both of those properties as is. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Please bear with my speech this evening. What I would like to say, and I'll make my comments very brief, many of you know that I testified and spoke before the county council before because I thought there was an abuse of text amendments to get around the actual planning process. I believe that we're facing some similar things now, and I'll use the freeway airport as an example, where we should keep that density lower. We should keep it zoned where it is and not be concerned or worried about why this is being rushed, because there are a lot of concerns about that. Why is it being moved up so fast? Why haven't we had a reasonable amount of time to really go through all of the process about the where we are with the Buoy master plan, where we are with these parcels that were changed, and not really giving us enough time as a council to really go through and discuss and really go in detail with our planning staff on what this means. My point being that I think we need to take a strong look as a council and sending a letter and making sure that the county council understands our concerns and those areas and those things that we do not want to have change, and that we ask that they give us more time to review and talk and really discuss this even more in depth with the citizens, because they deserve for us to be able to give them the best thought, and that our county council be able to really explain so that people understand why are we changing this and what those impacts are. And finally, I'll say on that, and as I said, I spoke out against increasing the density at the freeway airport. A part of that is because, candidly, I live this way. And I worry about my wife, my children. I worry about my grandson, on all the traffic we already have there and all the accidents we're having there, to enhance that with a lot more traffic without being able to really enhance the infrastructure. So I really think that we need to put forth the questions and ask that we have more time to even review the changes that are being made. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make one quick comment since we've been here for a while on this topic, and we still have a lot going on tonight, and then I will entertain a motion if council is interested in moving forward with action. Fittingly, our first meeting, actually our swearing-in day, we talked about this issue. This was the first thing as a new council, sitting as a new city council, that we focused on. It was freeway airport, it was the density, and it was the homes. For me, as somebody who represents the Church Road corridor, a lot of our residents in District 3 and in District 2 are in that area. We know how painful it is for our residents in those communities in regards to traffic mitigation. And something has to change, right? And we as a council, as we look towards the future, I say this more as a forward-thinking thing, not necessarily as a tonight topic, but we as the largest municipality in Prince George's County have to use every single inch of our power to ensure that Church Road finally can change. We've been talking about this for decades at this point, and nothing has happened. I agree with my colleagues, and I echo the sentiments about smart development. I think we are getting smarter about the development that we want in the city, the type of residential housing that we want in the city, and more importantly, as Councilwoman Harrison mentioned, ensuring that we actually attract commercial development here once and for all to the Bowie and the greater Bowie area as well. So I say that just to say that I agree with my colleagues on this issue. I agree with the residents on this issue, but as we look forward to the future, let's make sure that we're using our power as the largest municipality in Prince George's County, the third largest city in the state of Maryland, to make sure that the county council and the county exec are doing everything they can to ensure that Church Road is finally a place where we don't have to worry about residents losing their lives anymore. With that being said, I will pass it along to my colleague, Councilmember Wolfley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Appreciate it. One quick question for staff, and then I'd like to make a motion. Joe, have we seen anything at all from the Bowie Town Center for any changes there? Or would anything be needed for them to continue in their redevelopment efforts?
No, there are no changes proposed. Well, I should take that back. 59, let's see, 59 in Table 1. Well, yes, the changes that are being made are adjustments that we've already talked about through the Bowie Master Plan update. For example, the City Council recommended expanding the core area of the town center as opposed to the edge area. So these are changes that are being made in sync with those recommendations that you've made previously. So I think it is setting the town center up for the type of development that the council wants to see.
All right, that's good. That's important, and something I think what people need to understand. I think that is an example of some smart development. We've got a piece of property there that's central, that has good access points, and has the potential for making a meaningful improvement to the shopping experience and to provide, to make a good use of that space. So I think that's good. With all that, thank you again for answering all my questions. Very much appreciate it, Joe. I'd like to make a motion to accept staff recommendation with the following exceptions. The first being retaining Frank's Nursery in the RE classification. The Free State Shopping Center, keeping that in the RR, and that section that's requested behind their current shopping area. Maintaining the airport in the AR, in the current zoning. And for property owner request number 3, retaining that as AR as well.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any objections?
The question on the motion.
Yep.
Actually, this is not a really question, it's a statement. I just want to say I really can't tell my colleagues enough how much I appreciate the honest and sincere and candid deliberation we have on this body. None of these decisions are easy, but with this group, I always feel like we have conversations from a place of sincerity. We're going to be losing a few of you soon, which we're sad about. Excited for you, but sad about. But I just want to say I really appreciate the sincerity and integrity with which this body operates. Thank you.
Any other comments on the motion?
Yes. May
Mr. Mayor?
I would like to ask my esteemed colleague if he would mind if we added, as we write a letter and provide our response to the county council, that we also request that they give us even more time so that we can talk with more residents, because this has just happened so fast that we be given more time to take a look at it. There's no urgency for this to happen in the next week or so. It's an arbitrary deadline that was just imposed, and that we simply ask that we have more time for us to take a closer look at all of the areas and have a little more time, and simply request that with the letter that we sent.
Will the council member accept that as a friendly amendment?
Yes, most gracious. Thank you very much for the input on that. Happy to do so.
All right. For the record, can we restate the motion just so that staff has everything?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we will repeat here as best I can. The motion is to accept staff's recommendation with what are now 5 accommodations. The first is Frank's Nursery, keeping it low density RE. Free State Shopping Center, keeping it lower the RR. Airport Residential, what is currently AR, what it current equivalent. And property owner request number 3, retaining it as AR, as well as drafting a letter in support of postponing the freeway airport discussion to allow for proper analysis and input from the planning staff.
All right. You still
Second.
Great. So it's been moved and seconded. There are no objections. I will now call for a roll call vote. Madam City Clerk.
Let's go. Councilmember Ndebumalo.
I'm sorry, we can't answer any questions as we're about to vote. It's up to the city clerk's discretion. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I didn't know there was a preference. I just try to give it all even to everybody. Councilmember Steph?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolfley?
Aye.
Councilmember Harrison?
I vote aye.
Councilmember Gardner?
I vote aye.
Councilmember Ndebumalo?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem? Mayor Adams?
Aye.
7-0. The ayes have it.
Thank you. Now moving on to item B, County Legislation CB 69, 77, 78, and 92.
Good evening again, Mayor Pro Tem Boafo. This is Joe Meinert, Planning Director. This item is county legislation. We were asked to review several bills with you that are of concern to the city, CB 69, 77, 78, and 92. Each of these bills has actually been through the County Council's committee process, and the bills have been voted out favorably, so they'll be heading to public hearing in the next few weeks. I can go through the items briefly, and generally our recommendation is to oppose all of the bills because they certainly do appear to weaken the zoning ordinance rewrite that was just approved in the past year. The regulations that were adopted by the new ordinance really haven't had enough, we haven't had enough time or experience to determine whether changes are necessary, and so all of these bills we believe are harmful to the direction that the county set with the zoning ordinance rewrite. So the first bill, CB 69, has to deal with, or deals with the MXT zone properties, and actually the technique or the tactic that's being used by the sponsor of the bill, who's at-large member Mel Franklin, is to basically say that to provide more flexibility to those over 7,000 properties in the county, the bill CB 69 will allow those property owners the option of developing under the new CGO, Commercial General Office Zone. And this bill then raises substantial public policy implications for the county. It would result in changes to zoning that were not contemplated in the county-wide map amendment and would not be the result of comprehensive or piecemeal rezoning procedures. In a sense, it's a de facto rezoning or upzoning for those 7,000 properties. So we believe this bill the city should oppose. The second bill is CB 77. This is another bill proposed by Councilmember Franklin. This is one that has very serious concerns to staff, and we were contacted by some other municipalities in the county who felt the same way, that this bill allows grandfathering in perpetuity by property owners to all prior uses and regulations to reconstruct and expand simply by having an application filed and not even approved by April of 2024. Currently, the way the county is phasing in the rezoning or the new zoning rewrite, property owners have until 2024 to use the old ordinance or use the new ordinance. This bill, CB 77, would basically allow grandfathering in perpetuity as long as you have filed an application prior to April 2024. So it would basically memorialize the phase-in process that's in place now for this 2-year period, and would make it the county using 2 different zoning books basically into the future. So we feel that this CB 77 is very harmful and very contrary to the purpose of moving to a new 21st century zoning ordinance. CB 78 is another bill proposed by Councilmember Franklin. It is also dealing with the zoning of properties that have been in split zones. So you might have one parcel of land where the zoning line splits the parcel. So you might have a lower density zone adjacent to a higher density zone. And this bill, CB 78, would allow that property owner to choose to develop the entire property according to the provisions of the higher density zone. So again, it's contrary to the purposes of the new ordinance. It really would result in a lot of unpredictable impacts on adjacent properties. In some cases, for example, the property that we talked about tonight with the Free State Shopping Center, where you actually had a zoning buffer, you could have the property owner selecting to use the higher density zone. That's just an analogy, but so we find this bill to be harmful to the purposes of the county zoning ordinance, and that the city should oppose it. And finally, the last bill was CB 92, and this bill is one that addresses the role of the district council in hearing, or basically allowing them to call up a detailed site plan or a matter before them and make the final decision. Currently, all of those procedures that the county has of a zoning nature are ultimately able to be decided by the district council. CB 92 would take the district council out of that process. They would still be there as an appeal body, but it would take away their ability to elect to review a particular development project through the site plan process or other zoning processes. So we believe that that's harmful because in a lot of cases there are property owners or people, residents who want to appeal. City council would like to see the county council review a development case, and having that option taken away, we believe would really affect the process that currently does work in the city's favor in many cases. And so the recommendation, we have a draft letter that's attached to the package that covers all 4 of the bills. As I mentioned, the bills will be going to public hearing in the next few weeks, so we would request council's approval of the letters to send to the county. In addition to that, these 4 bills, I was asked by the mayor to speak on CB 72. CB 72 is a bill that was proposed to increase the fines, civil penalties for any person who violates provisions of the county code concerning grading, pollution, drainage, floodplain, and erosion control. Currently, the fines, the county can levy a fine up to $250, but the CB 72 will increase that fine to $1,000 and make that accrue daily while the site is under violation. So it's really ramping up the code enforcement capabilities of the county when it comes to addressing and correcting violations of the grading, sediment control, floodplain ordinances of the county. So it's intended to address pollution and try to eliminate those types of violations. With that, I would conclude the staff presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do any members have any questions?
Just, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, just a quick comment. Thank you, first of all, for your good work on this. And I know we have someone from our planning board still here. Any comment from anybody on the committee or our board, review board? No? Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you because this is good work and, you know, keeping on top of these things for us and very much appreciated. Thank you.
Any other members have any comments? All right. Yes, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the council accept the recommendations and oppose CB 69, CB 77, CB 78, and CB 92.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, I will now call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Hearing none, it has passed. Moving on to agenda item C, the Judo Village information presentation.
Pleasure to be back here this evening. And tonight I am here with Judo Temple, AME, Zion Church. Of course, they're located on the north side of Mount Oak Road, 14500. They have 23 acres where their church is presently located. And we're here this evening to just give you a briefing on an exciting opportunity and project on property which is not in the city of Bowie, but is certainly adjacent to the city. And so we do not have an application filed. This is a presentation. And at this point, I'd just like to turn things over to Pastor Moore, who will take you through a brief presentation. And I think you're going to use this.
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to come up and make a few comments at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. To Mayor Adams and Pro Temp Mayor, and to the esteemed Bowie Council personnel, let me just express my gratitude to all of you for allowing me the opportunity to share the vision of Judo Village. And I had a 2-hour presentation planned, but in the interest of time, We'll cut that down. We'll cut that down for tonight. But Judo's been a part of this community for over 25 years. And so we're really excited about what we've been able to do in the community. from the beginning, we've had the heart to serve the community. That's been what Judo has been about, is serving the community, and we pride ourselves on that. And so we had this vision. This picture here really is when we started in 1997, and how I was looking out over the land, and just we had the vision of how can we better the community that we are a part of. And so this presentation tonight really comes out of this vision, to really make our community better. Tonight we have a couple of folk with us. You met Mr. Ed Gibbs, our amazing land use attorney. We have Mr. Eric Moore, who is our principal architect and partner at GHI. We have Ms. Kelly Shem, who is the head of projects and partner at GHI. And then we have Mr. Vincent Lassier, who is the chairperson of our CDC and a longstanding member of the church. And they're here. And just we're sharing this concept with you tonight. We really, a part of this vision to serve the community really is about providing space for families. And I'm gonna give you the quick highlights. And we provided an executive summary for you, and any of those in the chamber that would like a summary can email us at judavillage@gmail.com, and we can give them some of the information so we don't have to go into detail tonight. But can I just take a moment of transparency, because I really had just a little concern about sharing about Judo Village tonight because of some of the other items on the agenda tonight. And I hear my friends and family and neighbors from the community, and I really heard them and felt them. And so I was like, I don't know if I want to share tonight, because I just didn't want a transference of some of the negative feelings that they may have. But as I listened to every person speak, I got more and more excited. And the reason I got excited is because we have the opportunity to show how and why we're different than some of the other experiences that they may have had. How we can show a contrast, because we're really looking to improve life in our community, in our Bowie community. And we want to partner with Bowie, with the leaders of Bowie, with the residents of Bowie, with the community, to make life better, not just for us, but for generations to come. We're really looking how we can do that. And on this slide right now, it really talks about some of the attributes and some of the things where we've designed, the amenities that we've designed to put on the property to really be a blessing to the community. We talk about the controlled environment, agriculture. We have planned a 17,000 square foot advanced indoor agricultural facility that will produce over 300,000 units of fresh food each year. We have that planned, and we have partners in the Netherlands that have been here several times working with us through that. We have virtual learning labs. We have a 21st century digital media studio center that really will allow us to learn, develop, and train and create in this 21st century digital media. We have an aging community concierge, which really will help our aging population, and it will help residents. It will help them to facilitate different activities and engagements and companionships, and it would help them with transitioning and from in aging in place. You know, I share oftentimes that, you know, the house I live on, property that is good size, and I'm sick and tired of cutting grass. And so I'm looking for some place I don't want to move to Atlanta or Florida or North Carolina. I want to stay in my Bowie community, stay in this area and age in place. And so we're looking at serving and servicing those. We're also looking at health and wellness in this property, exercising facilities, basic medical care, social activities, health and nutritional seminars. So that's a part of that whole process. We're looking at we're trying to be a part of the solution. And we know everyone, especially Bowie and Prince George's County, is really looking at how we can be better with taking care of our environment. And so we've set some ambitious goals to achieve net zero, as close to net zero designation as possible. We're increasing access to fresh food and opportunities. We're bridging generations in the digital era, and all this wonderful stuff we're doing. All right, I want to just show you 3 more slides, and I'll be out your way. I promise you. I promise you. This is something we're proposing. We're proposing this layout. We have individual residences. We're individual residences. Individual residences. All right. And these residences, we're hoping to achieve this ambitious goal of net zero designation. And the way we're doing that is we're exploring a variety of renewable energy integrations to be the foundation for the whole community, but also to be integrated into each individual living facility. Each one of them will be able to produce energy, and it will really, really help with our, and also in this plan, we're curating a landscape plan that will deliver increased green space. And we have plenty of green space on our property, but we're looking to increase green space. We're increasing the tree density. We're improving the sightliness of the sight lines of our neighbors, and planting and designing a natural privacy line for trees. We're doing all this in this plan. All right, so this is just a concept drawing. This is the first draft of what the individual units will look like. This right here, we want to show you this because it shows what the property can look like. We really are working with putting together a traffic study, because right there where the back entrance of the Woodmore Tall Oaks Estates, there's a exit and entrance there, and it really comes out. There's a stop sign, but it's a pretty dangerous intersection right there. And so what we're looking at is trying to create an intersection there that would be safer for all those involved, and that would really be a blessing to that whole area, the Mount Oak Road and all that stuff there. You can see it there, and like I said, you can get more information. We can share this and with those that we've partnered. We've partnered with Local Dutch. We've partnered with Posado's Place. We've partnered with CAF in this area. All these partnerships, we really are putting collaborations in place so that we can make our portion of the community that much better. All right, there's a whole lot more information we want to share, but I really wanted to just present. Thank you for allowing us to present, and if there's any questions, we're open for questions. Like I said, more information is available. Just email us at judavillage@gmail.com, and we want to thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Pastor Moore. Do members have any questions?
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Brocco.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you very much. I want to say, wow, Pastor Moore, this definitely shows and speaks to who Judo Temple is. In this project, you have fully taken in the thoughts and consideration of your neighbors and the neighbors of Bowie. I mean, all of what you're providing here, this is an incredible plan. I love that you've taken in strong consideration the environment, and with the solar, with the EVs charging stations, and inviting the community as a whole to join in the festivities, more or less, are the accomplishments and the amenities that you're providing there at Judo Village. You, in designing this project, you have fully taken in and thought about everyone. This is what I like to see when development projects come forward and ideas come forward. And we were all talking tonight about smart development, community engagement. I've heard a number of things from a number of residents here in Bowie that are familiar with your project and your proposed plan here. I've gotten zero negative feedback, zero. And I just want to say I am very honored that you guys are doing this here in our community. And when I say our, I mean Judo as well, because it is a community of us all. The one downside that I have to this is that it currently doesn't reside officially in the city of Bowie. So as we move through this project, I like my colleagues to join with me in supporting, not only supporting the approval of this, but supporting annexing this project into the city of Bowie, because it's a beacon that I like other developers to see as they bring amenities and projects to Bowie. Councilmember Harrison mentioned earlier tonight that we typically get the short end of the stick. You've given us the entire stick. And I thank you, and I thank the entire Judo family, and I look forward to working with you as we move down the road on this project. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pastor Moore. Thank you very much to Judo Temple family. And thank you, colleagues, this evening for allowing me to say that.
Councilwoman Harrison.
Thank you so much. My comments will be brief. But thank you so much, Pastor Moore, for coming this evening, and Ed, we appreciate all of that. I mean, your presentation was great, but I know personally that there's just so much more to dig into everything that you're doing. I was personally interested in this project, and I talked to Pastor Moore, and he shared more information. And if you could hear all about the controlled environment agriculture and the hydroponic, technology that they're going to use to grow these vegetables, it is just something that we don't have here anywhere in the county. But it speaks to food insecurity. His project speaks to workforce challenges, STEM, aging in place, and just a wonderful, loving environment for residents. So I encourage those of you that haven't heard more to talk to Pastor Moore and get more information. And I just wanted to ask one question. What type of feedback have you received from the community on your project?
We've actually been blessed. We've had several meetings, community meetings. We've had several conversations with leaders in the community. And because we're a part of the community, I believe they understand our heart is to help and to improve the community. So we've had great conversation. We've had great feedback. And when we get a little negative feedback, we take that so that it can help us just really make the necessary tweaks so that we can bless the community. So it's been really a great engagement. We're grateful.
Thank you so much, and we just appreciate your forward thinking and the innovation that you've put into all of this, so we appreciate it. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for coming out and sharing with us this evening. I have just a couple of quick questions. How many total units?
Right now on the concept would be 87 on the concept, so we're saying between 80 and 90.
Mm-hmm. And you're going to redo the church facility as well?
The church facility will be relocated into the family life facility. What we envision is not another sanctuary, because we realize that sanctuaries are the most underutilized space in the church facility. They're used on Sundays and one day during the week for Bible study. And so what we're looking at is incorporating our sanctuary into the family life center so it becomes a multi-purpose use facility. Upgraded, modern, all the technology that we could put into that, and it will be a part of the whole family life center.
Great. Thank you very much for coming. If you've got any more information, I'd love to see it. Shoot me with an email. That'd be fantastic. Again, thank you very much, and did a good job reducing it down from your 2-hour presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Steph.
Pastor Moore, I really appreciate you taking the time tonight. I know we had a long evening. I was talking to a neighbor about your concept earlier today, and when I mentioned hydroponic gardening, their eyes lit up. And he said, "Don't you know that's going to be the future?" And I said, I had to look hydroponic up. I don't know if it's the past, present, future. I don't know what it is. And he said, in the long term, to sustain population growth, we're going to have to abandon traditional models of farming, and the future is going to be all about building, essentially vertical farming. and automating it. I think what you're doing is really incredible. I apologize that I haven't been able to get out and visit it yet, but I'd like to hang out with you soon and see some more of your plans up close. But I love this concept. You guys have clearly put a ton of thought into it. You've left no stone unturned. You've done incredible community outreach, and I just wish that every applicant who came before us put in a fraction of the effort and love that you're clearly putting into this project. So thank you for sharing this with us.
Thank you, sir. Actually, we put 5 years, and for 5 years we've been working and planning. We've flown in local Dutch. They're from the Netherlands. The Netherlands, they are the leaders in controlled environment, agriculture, that whole, they're the leaders. And so we're excited about it. It really is some innovation that we can bring in. We're really hoping that we can help spark a movement in development to show how development really can be done and should be done possibly. That's our hope, is that we really can really start something that will catch on. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ndebumadu.
First of all, thank you so much for coming out and giving us an update and this wonderful presentation. I just have to say, this is just absolutely radiant. Like, I've never seen anything like this before, and it's just so exciting that something like this would be housed in Bowie, of all like, I mean, you put so much thought and emphasis and research and just innovative thinking into this piece of development that it's just remarkable to see it come together, and it's just wonderful to see just all the different components that you're gonna touch. And as a person of faith, I think this is a great example of, you know, how different churches can lead the way of getting more engaged in the community and being more invested in the community and investing in our youth and exposing them to different pathways, like you're talking about with digital and tech and media, and you're talking about with agriculture and farming. And I think what's particularly intriguing is how you're involving some outside components when you talk about different leaders in the industry and how they're leading the way and bringing them to our community and exposing them. And I think these are the types of things and these are the types of examples of development that we need to be able to see to increase and attract that commercial tax base that we've talked about this entire evening. So I know you were a little nervous going after that last presentation, but I think this was actually worked out really, really well for you, because I think this is a really great example of how development can be done really differently and very thoughtfully to engage the community, to take just a unique approach of what does it look like to actually include a community in the development process and actually address the different needs of community. I think over the last 3 years that I've been in office, and I think many of my colleagues who are in the private sector echo this as well, we've heard a number of different feedback from residents around like community centers, or really being able to be exposed to new pathways, or having a place to come together to be able to learn. When you talk about senior services and you talk about just agriculture, like just different things that people can rally around that brings the community together, but still in a very learning forward environment. So I just think this is absolutely radiant. I really, really want to learn more. And I echo the comments of my colleague, Councilman Gardner, in just considering maybe an annexation and having that conversation down the line and seeing what that really looks like. But one question for you, have you met with our IT committee at all?
I have not met with the IT committee of Bowie. We have some IT persons some consultants and persons that we have that are part of the planning process, but not with Bowie. I would love to be with the IT committee for Bowie.
Yeah, I think that would be really, really, really good for you to engage with them and have a conversation. So I'm happy to set that up. But I think that would be really good, because I think part of what the IT committee just really focuses on is really smart cities and what does that really look like for the future of the city of Bowie. And over the last few months, we've adopted different resolutions to bridge that digital divide and really figure out like what does it mean for us to be a leader in the smart city movement, and how can we continue to attract more infrastructure and funding that will support the growth and the continuation of smart city development. And that's of the benefit of all residents. And so I think that would be really good for you to be able to meet with them, and I'm happy to make that introduction. So I'll shoot you an email.
Would love it. We would definitely love it.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor?
Pastor, as always, thank you for all you do for our community. I think it was a great presentation. I have to agree with all of my colleagues. You know, there's something very special about what you're trying to do. But again, I go back and say, what you're doing for our communities is very special already. And thank you so very much for being here this evening.
Thank you, sir.
Before we end here and head to the next agenda item, I'll be really brief because I think all my colleagues echoed my sentiments. The reason why I wanted this on the agenda is for two key reasons. The first being that while Pastor Moore's facility isn't yet in the city of Bowie, he's been doing tremendous outreach to our constituents in a way that I don't think I've seen in my last 3 years of being here. Second, his facility, we were supposed to meet for what was supposed to be 20 minutes. It ended up being a few hours on Friday. And we had a great conversation. Is really going to be forward-thinking, and I think one of the leading facilities when it does finally arrive here, not just in Prince George's County, but in the state of Maryland as well. So I just want to publicly thank you for all your work, your staff's work as well, on really trying to make this vision come true. So thank you so much, Pastor Moore.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Thank all of you.
No problem. All right, moving on to item D, the adoption of Resolution R-4822. Sorry, Councilwoman Harrison.
Thank you so much. I'll be brief. In regards to Resolution R-48-22, I just wanted to give just some brief comments in regard to what I'm asking for. And the memo, of course, was included in the packet, and I sent it to you all earlier, so hopefully you had a chance to kind of briefly review. But just basically, we want to make some changes to the Bowie Youth Council. And I just want to go through a couple of the changes as far as changing the name from the Youth Council to the Youth Advisory Committee to be more in keeping with the group's role and mission. And the mission being the Bowie Youth Advisory Committee provides an opportunity for local students to learn about local government and have a voice in city affairs. The committee consists of 9 City of Bowie students from grades 6 through 12 who have the opportunity to provide positive leadership and service and engage the community. Each of the 4 districts is represented. The Youth Advisory Committee application will be amended to add additional questions, which may include those about balancing commitments, conflict resolution, engaging their peers, and what the applicants hope to gain from their experience as a member, or what contributions they would bring to the group. Monthly meetings would consist of new and old business and will mainly be structured as workshops or working sessions. Meetings will be held from September to May. And we will also look into Prince George's County Public School service learning hours and what activities are justified in order to hopefully provide members with service learning hours. Our timeline is as such to start applications September 20th, which is this week. Application period closes September 30th. Will only extend if not enough applications are received. We'll conduct interviews in early October. Appoint members October 17th. The City Council will, and our orientation meeting will be held October following the appointments. So that is an overview, and I urge your favorable vote for Resolution R-48-22. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any members have any questions for the Councilwoman?
I appreciate Councilmember Harrison taking the lead on this, sharing everything in advance, and the rationales made sense to me. So thank you.
Great. The chair will entertain a motion.
I'd like to move that we accept the resolution.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, R-4822 has passed. Moving on to item
Thank you.
E, the council discussion on the use of city parks for community events hosted by council members. Councilwoman Indeba Mata.
I'll make this brief. I don't know which particular policy it is, but essentially I just put this item on the agenda for us to have a discussion on the ability for council members to use city recreational facilities or parks to host community events in their essential elected capacity. Brief context is this weekend on Sunday, I'll be having a community day for District 4, and the objective of that community day, which is not being planned by staff, it's being planned by myself, in partnership with a local nonprofit that focuses on mentoring the youth throughout Bowie. Essentially, the objective is to just provide updates for the community and provide provide a forum and an outlet for people to just gather and get to know each other and have conversations and talk. This event is being hosted at Allen Pond at the amphitheater from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. in the afternoon on September 25th. And essentially, currently right now, for the use of parks and rentals of parks, whether you're a council member or not, you do have to pay a fee. I think that's just been the policy for many, many years. So I'm not indicating any type of fault on staff whatsoever. I just think that's just what our policy has been. For residents, it's $1,500. For non-residents, it's $5,000 to essentially rent a park to be able to host an engagement. And so really, I put this item on the agenda to just have a discussion with my colleagues and hopefully see if we can find a resolution, because as a council member who is looking to engage her community and also make sure that I'm providing outlets and we are coming together and providing a space for the community to get updates, provide feedback. There will be different representatives from city staff as well as Jesse Buggs talking about workforce development and sharing workforce development opportunities. I've also invited the communications department, but I don't think they will be able to attend based on our branding initiatives right now. And then also invited City Manager Al Lott to give updates regarding and pertaining to District 4. And so essentially, I'm just looking for a discussion to see if we can come to a resolution so council members do not need to pay to essentially leverage the park to host community day events in elected capacity. And this has nothing to do with any type of political campaigning or anything like that.
All right, thank you so much, Councilwoman. City staff, do you guys have anything to add to this?
I'd like to just explain the staff position. We get our direction from the city council, and the primary method of getting that direction is through the budget process. And in the budget, it stipulates the fees, and there are no exceptions to that. So we don't have the authority to waive anything for any resident, whether they're a city council person or not. And so we would have to, in order to change that, you would have to give me the authority to do that for council members or whomever you want. But right now we can't do it without that direction. Thank you.
Any other members have any thoughts, questions, or concerns? Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yep, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
I'd like to ask, what kind of impact would we see if we were to allow council members to use facilities? From a cost or whatever standpoint?
Well, I mean, based on the past years, I mean, there hasn't been very much of a demand for this, other than an event that Mr. Boffo and his used as a private citizen a while back. But and so this would be the first time that in the last almost 6 years that we would be pressed with this situation. So it would be a minimal impact financially.
Thank
Unless
you.
it happens 10, 12 times a year, and then you have the issue of equity with regard to other residents who would have to pay.
Thank you, City Manager.
All right. Any other thoughts or concerns by any members?
So currently, we do have a policy where council members can get like one like free event that they can organize on their own with city support every year. Can staff remind us what that current policy is?
Well, I don't have that in front of me. Daniel, do you recall the specifics on that one?
Mr. Lott, I believe that was early in the year when we were doing a lot of the town hall Zoom meetings. I believe
Yeah.
that's when it was discussed. I don't know per se the policy off the top of my head, but I believe that's when it was discussed.
Right, and it addressed it was focused on the town hall meetings as the foundation for their policy. But we haven't had any of those come up since then.
So maybe I could suggest this, and Councilmember, tell me if you think this is consistent. Maybe we can simply have that policy apply to council members wanting to do, I think it was like one event a year. And maybe we can just expand it from town halls to larger events, but with the addendum that there just has to be a certain period of time before which, staff is given the opportunity to say yes or no and all that. In the case of this particular event, I know it's coming up this weekend. Perhaps we could agree to grant a special exemption this time, since this is a first-time thing. And then going forward, council members get basically one event a year. That they have the option to do.
I think the financial impact of this one is just the security deposit for the amphitheater, correct? Mr. Nibabanu, that's the only fee that you would have to pay here, right?
Yes, City Manager Lott, you're accurate in this case, yes. With the moving of the event to the amphitheater, yes.
Okay.
I think, oh, sorry. You want to do it? Okay.
Just make one comment, Mayor Pro Tem. I was just suggesting that maybe we do it on a case-by-case basis. So we bring forward whatever event that we would like to host, and then, the council decides at that time whether or not we want to, not pay for the park or et cetera. However we want to work that out, but maybe on a case-by-case basis instead of making it overall rule.
Can I recommend that we, and this is just my recommendation here, that we make it an exemption for the event that's coming up this Sunday, and that members reconvene, and in October, during our meeting then, we kind of put forth a more formal policy that we believe is best.
Yeah, I think
I could agree.
I think that's great.
I could agree with that. Yes.
City Manager Lott, do you need a motion for that?
No, he does not.
Okay, great.
City staff, did you get that?
Well, I mean, I would need a vote to waive the
Okay.
fees. Yes.
All right.
It's a financial thing, but.
Sounds good.
Simple.
The chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Well, you have to make the motion.
I move that for the event scheduled by Councilmember Ndibamadu this Sunday, that the city waive the deposit requirement, and that we schedule a meeting in October, or add to our agenda at our first meeting in October, to discuss developing a policy on the use of public facilities for council events.
Second.
I second that.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any objections? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're all invited, thanks.
All opposed? Any abstentions? All right, hearing none, the motion will now, the chair will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you
It's
for
been
the
moved,
direction.
seconded. Any objections? Hearing none. Okay. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.